Hello everyone, this is General Hand Grenade. Welcome to my war room in Prince George, British Columbia. Today's video is another in our series of Global War 1936 to 1945 expansion sets. And this is the second part of the Bring in the Heavies. Yesterday I did the first part, which was the Might of the Reich, which was the German heavies. And this is Glory of the Empire, which is the Japanese heavies. And this is from the America game. The America game is an alternate history game where that assumes that the Axis have won World War II, and so the Allies have retreated back to America, and then the Japanese attack them from the Pacific coast, and the Germans and Italians attack them from the East Coast. And the map is a big map of the United States, and it's a pretty cool game actually. But anyway, this is these pieces that I'm going to show you here are an expansion set from that, and they've also adapted that expansion set to work with the 1936 game, as well as rules that you can use the out-of-box pieces from the America game, and I'll show you those too for the Japanese. I wish that they had more pieces. That's my only regret about this, because these are really quality units, and neat units too. Like they're slightly more advanced than World War II standards. At best they are. There was only a few of them built before the end of the war. They're all late war stuff, or plans that were on the drawing board to build, and the war ended before they could build them. And so that's the kind of pieces that you get in this set. And so, of course, if you're going to use them, you have to develop certain technologies in the game, and you'll use it later in the game. Like, there's no way you're going to be using them in 1936, pre-war, because these weapons are a little more advanced. So let's just take a look at the units, okay? Let's move this out of the way. And I put them on Japan there. So let me zoom in a bit. Okay, so you can see here we've got a strategic bomber and a jet fighter and a seaplane. That's a good way to get seaplanes. Like, seaplanes are pretty expensive things to buy. They're coming down in price, so I notice if you go on Shapeways or in Historical Board Gaming's store on Shapeways, then you can get them, but you do have to paint them though. But this is the normal colors, except for that jet fighter. I painted the jet fighter, but the other ones you can see are basically your normal Axis and Allies colors, because here's an Axis and Allies piece right here. So they're basically the same color, this set. Okay, so let's find out what these things are. Let me just move this camera over here. Okay, we're going to start with the bomber over there. And that is a Kawanishi K200. Oh, wait a minute. I'm skipping ahead. That's not the bomber. That's the seaplane. Okay, so the bomber, that's a Nakajima G10N1 Fukagu. It's a heavy strategic bomber. So I think this is the one from the America bomber set that you get, the expansion set. I'm pretty sure it is, because it's got the same stats and everything. So if you remember back to that video, this bomber here, this is what that is. So your carpet bombing is at 3 instead of 2, because it's a heavy bomber, and of course you would use 5 dice instead of 2. The defense is 3, the movement is 18, and the cost is 17. So basically a very long range heavy bomber is what that is. Availability, so when Japan develops heavy strategic bombers and long range aircraft has been built with at least 2 long range strategic bombers. So you need to build 2 regular long range strategic bombers, and then you can build this heavy long range strategic bomber. So that's basically what that is. It's just a killer bomber, but really expensive though, like $17, right? So the next thing there, and I believe that you can buy these in 5 packs from Historical Board Gaming. The jet fighter, that's the Kika, the J8N1 jet fighter. So it arrived too late in the war to see service. It was designed as a multi-role jet fighter and would have been used as an interceptor, ground attack aircraft, and possibly kamikaze weapons. Anyway, so it's like a jet fighter. It's attack and defense at 8. The interception value is a 5. That's pretty high interception value. The movement is 4 and the cost is 12. And it's available when Japan develops jet technology. So it's just basically a jet fighter. With this set, then you wouldn't need to buy yourself a bunch of extra jet fighters. But I should mention though, with these things, with this expansion set, as well as with the other two Bringing the Heavies expansion sets, you can get 5 of each or 2 of each of these things. So if you're buying this and you're going to use these jet fighters, you would probably want to buy 5 of each of this set. The German one, I don't know, like I suggested, maybe 2 of each might be enough, but that's up to you. You know, you might just like these and want 5 each. I didn't take a look at the price. I had 7 of each actually because I had 5, and then somebody else gave me a set. They traded me theirs, which was 2 of each of all the sets. So anyway, so the seaplane there, that is the Kawanashi K200. So it was a turbojet powered flying maritime patrol boat aircraft designed for long-range maritime duties. The aircraft would have had numerous machine gun armaments as well as torpedoes, bombs, and depth charges. So it attacks at 5, it defends at 5, it moves 6 spaces, so quite long range for that. And it costs 10. Now you can buy those when Japan develops jet aircraft technology. It has a combat patrol range of 2, and it has a target selection of 1 to 2 for naval units. So this is a pretty good unit here. Why don't I just go over what seaplanes are though, because they do give you the seaplanes in this thing as well. And I don't believe I've gone over seaplanes with you yet. The next game I play, I'm hoping to put seaplanes in. We were going to put them in the last game, but we already had enough expansion sets in there, and so we didn't bother with the seaplanes because that would have been a little too much. I'm still early, a young player in this game, and so I wanted to play a fairly close to out-of-box game against my opponents there, so I could better learn how to do the game before I started throwing a bunch of extra things in. But seaplanes, they look pretty cool. So a seaplane is an aircraft for all game purposes and may not land on water. It is required to land in a coastal zone. Seaplanes may not land on aircraft carriers or use air bases. A seaplane treats a naval base as if it were an air base, allowing it to scramble, extend its range, and reinforce a territory from a base captured this turn. A seaplane may land in a zone captured this turn in combat, so long as that zone contains a recently captured naval base or seaplane base. A seaplane that participated in combat could land in such a zone in non-combat movement. However, such a seaplane could not fly a combat mission without enough movement points to return to a friendly zone. So even though you could land that in a zone that you've captured, you had to have established the fact that you could land safely in your own zone before you did that. So seaplane bases. A seaplane base was an important facility throughout the 1920s and 30s. Seaplanes were opening up new and quicker routes to areas in the Pacific and South America where there were no serviceable airfields. Seaplanes were an important part of all national arsenals in World War II to provide maritime patrol, anti-submarine duties, search and rescue, and other duties. A seaplane base is a facility that can act as an air base for seaplanes. Like a regular air base, it allows seaplanes that begin there to add 1 to their movement. A seaplane base also allows up to 3 seaplanes to scramble from the base and participate in naval combat in an adjacent sea zone. A seaplane base can sustain 3 damages before it is removed from the map and must be rebuilt. It can be repaired as if it has 1 or 2 damages. A seaplane base costs 3 IPP. It has no inherent anti-aircraft guns. It requires 1 turn to build. So anyway, that's all about seaplanes and seaplane bases. I would really like to get those into my game. But they were talking about how you don't actually land in the water. You land on the land. It's true and it's not true. Like, they just don't want you landing out here in the water, right? So they're saying you have to land on the territory. But really what they mean is you're landing at the shoreline. So you are at the shore. It's not like they crane you onto land or anything. But in order to simulate it, you have to be in the territory. But you would be just off the territory. But so close that you would be considered to be on the territory anyway, right? Anyway, so that is that. Let me just get back here. Okay, so those are the planes. What else do we got there? Okay, this one here, that's quite the huge tank destroyer. I think I showed this when I was showing my building a Global War Army Japan. So that is the Ho-Ri 3 tank destroyer. It was inspired by more effective German designs, specifically the Elephant. This slow and heavily armored vehicle would have mounted a 105mm main gun. So just a huge gun on it. It's got attack 5, defense 6, movement 2, and cost 6. So almost like a tank. But the difference is it has a target selection of 1 to 3 on armor units. And you also have to develop heavy armor in order to purchase it. So you couldn't just purchase one as soon as you could purchase a medium tank. You have to develop that heavy armor first. So, and then the next one, this is just a medium armor tank. And the reason this one is good is because the Japanese medium tanks suck balls. Here, let me just grab the card here and give you the stats on the Japanese. But this one here, the stats are more like the other tanks in the game, everybody else's tanks. So the medium armor, the regular medium armor that you're playing with, so their stats are 6 and 5. So attack 6, defend 5, movement 2, but they cost 8 to build a Japanese tank, medium armor. So this one though, it's attack 6, defense 6, movement 2, and cost 6. So that's like the medium armor in for everybody else, right? It says the Japanese can build this Type 5 medium tank in January of 1944. So when it comes to 1944, you can build this sucker here for the same price that everybody else gets to build a tank, rather than having to spend $8 to build a tank. So they built it to combat the American Sherman. So it was a little late in the war, but that's what they built it for. So the next unit there, it's the last one, this one right here, and that is a self-propelled artillery / tank destroyer. So it's kind of like a light tank. It looks like one and it has a feel of one. It's kind of like one, but it's not quite as strong. You'll see here. It was a tank destroyer and self-propelled artillery gun in service with the Japanese Army during World War II. The improved design of this vehicle featured an enclosed casemate. Like a lot of tank destroyers that have an open top, this one has a closed top. And it mounted a 75mm main gun. So a pretty big gun for a little armor piece like that. Now, normally a light tank is 4 and 4, right? But this one here is attack 3 and defense 3. It moves 2 and it costs 5. And you can build this again like the last one, starting in January of 1944. Since it's an artillery, it has first strike, and you can pair your infantry unit 1-to-1 with this. And it has a target selection of 1 to 2 on armor class units. So it's quite a versatile little piece there. That's why the cost is up there. Even though it only attacks at 3 and defends at 3. It's kind of like self-propelled artillery, really, That's what a self-propelled artillery would do, 3 and 3, right? But with this one, it's an armor class unit that has first strike and target selection. So that is the units there. That's all of them. I just want to show you this as well. So at the end they give you a summary table, right? But rather than having to walk around with that all game, what I did, and I showed you this yesterday with the other one, is I have this here. Let me just zoom out again. This is, I laminated it, but it's a matte finish laminate. And so there's the Americans, there's the Japanese, and on the other side we have the Germans, right? And I don't think I need more than one of them, because these units, you're not using them constantly. And so I figured that just one card that you could pass around would be good enough. And all I did was I captured the images of those from the PDFs where you download them, and then I repasted them, for lack of a better term. I don't know what the term is, but anyway, it didn't take very long to make them up. So anyway, this is the out-of-box America pieces here. I'll just get to a little bit to the side here. Now, the bomber looks exactly like the heavy bomber. The difference, though, you'll see, is that this one's got 3 engines on each side, and this one has 2 engines on each side. That's the only way you can tell them apart. I didn't notice that when I first got the 3-engine one on each side, and so I was just using them interchangeably, and then, oh, hey, look at this one's different after a while. And here's your Special Navy Landing Force, and I actually use him as my Special Navy Landing Force in the Global War game. And you've got your heavy tank, and this is the biggest tank of any one that I've seen. It's just massive. Like, it's almost too big. I think they made the Japanese units a little bit too big. This fighter here, it looks like I have it backwards. I don't. They actually had that. This is actually forwards. They'd be flying forwards here. It was like a backwards plane. Kind of weird. And then you've got there's your medium armor here. You probably have lots of Japanese tanks, but these are a little bit nicer. You can use those if you want. And they have the self-propelled artillery, self-propelled anti-aircraft, and mechanized infantry. And I use this for my advanced mechanized infantry in the 1936 game. However, if you go to the rules part of the 1936, where it's the download rules kind of thing, and there's a bunch of other stuff in there, I believe you will find, I think that's where it is, you will find rules on how to use all of these for the 1936 game, if you didn't want to use them like I'm using them right now, with, just a substitute for units. Like, you could use this for your heavy tank, you know what I mean? Actually, what I'm using for my heavy tank for the Japanese is this one over here from the heavy set, and it's supposed to just be a medium tank. But like I said, the Japanese pieces are a little bit too big. They made them a little bit bigger, and so this is actually quite a bit bigger. Like, here's the size of a medium tank here. They're both supposed to be medium tanks, right? So I'm just using this as a heavy tank. It's just a sculpt, right? Anyway, because this one here, if I use that for a heavy tank, it's just enormous. With my map, I'm using the 4x8 map, and you could probably get away with using it. But if you're using the smaller map, the 3x6 map, then there's some territories where, like here in Nanking, let's just look over here at Nanking there. If you had a heavy tank in Nanking there, like, it just barely fits in on the big map. Imagine trying to put that on the small map. I don't think it would work. Anyway, so that is the bringing the heavy set, the glory of the Empire, and like I said, really good stuff. I was really happy when I first got these units, and I got them quite a while ago, so I use them a lot. I used them in my Axis and Allies games, and I use them in this game just because they're nicer pieces generally especially than Axis and Allies, but they're at least as good, if not better, than most of the historical wargaming units as well. They're just really good pieces. But that's all I got for you for this video, so take care, everyone. General Hand Grenade out.